Welcome back as we lurch ever closer to the Voyager finish line. Child's Play comes a mere 3 episodes after Collective, and it involves the Borg kids, because nothing helps the ratings like saying, that buxom blonde we put in a catsuit really needs to look more like a mom. The kids come up because of the kids' science fair. Clone potatoes, growing bugs, a climate model of Naomi's father's planet that looks good, but I'm told has already been discredited. And lastly, Icheb's device that will help Voyager locate wormholes by looking for neutrinos. Yep, that's like showing up at a school with a magnet that could help make Tomalac reactors more effective.
What's the matter with you people? I was joking! Don't you know a joke when you hear one?
But Janeway has some news for Seven. Seems that they've made contact with Icheb's parents, and they're heading that way. Seven's uncomfortable with that news, though, and after the titles, things get worse. Icheb is really super excited about a personal project of his, when he's not busy disproving string theory and making a perpetual motion machine, of course. No, he's enhanced long-range sensors so they could look at a star forming far away. Man, he loves this place, living the good life, couldn't imagine doing anything else, especially being back home among my people. So, what's up? Seven goes to see Janeway to learn a bit more about Icheb's species, and admits that she hasn't told Icheb yet about this. Well, Janeway offers to do it, but Seven thinks that it needs to come from her. And I'm afraid that time is now, because Icheb is busy playing around instead of regenerating like he's supposed to. Yep, he says that he's looking at neutrinos again. At this rate, I'm starting to think that that's what Icheb calls boobs. So she tells him, and he is rather bothered at the idea of going back to his parents. He wants to be with the others, and it would affect them if he were to leave Voyager. But, look on the bright side, Icheb. You'll be with the parents that you don't remember, leaving all this stellar cartography stuff behind to be a farmer on a planet located on one of the off-ramps of the Borg transwarp network. Honestly, kid, what's the downside? He's still somehow not sold on this idea, but they're heading the planet anyway. We'll work that all out when we arrive. Best thing to do with personal drama, really. Just try to pretend it's not there for as long as you possibly can and enjoy the peace and quiet. Well, by the time they get there, Icheb is nervous at the idea, but the doctor does his best to reassure him.
Parents are irrelevant, really. Do you think Naomi's mother is irrelevant to her?
She sure seems to be. Last time Naomi's mom showed up was the 5th episode of the season before. Try to come up with a better example next time, okay? How about Lieutenant Carey as far as people who are around? Icheb points out that all of this is completely inapplicable to the doctor anyway. Guy's got no parents. The closest he has is a surly, horny guy who looks like him and has to be talked into accepting that he even should be thought of as a self-aware being. Even Loxana Troy is better than that. Anyway, the civilization. Behold our mighty egg. Yo, 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 yo. So, they beam in and wow, just look at this place. I can see why you wouldn't want to give up rich farmland like this, no matter how many civilization-destroying killer cyborgs are passing by. /S. So anyway, here we are for the weirdest iteration of Meet the Parents. Mark Shepard naturally needs no introduction. This was rather early in his career, but he's still recognizable. Icheb's mother, though, I admit, this one gnawed at me for a while. I was like, I know that smeared butter-looking face from somewhere. Sure enough, she was on an episode of The X-Files that we did, Oubliette. The one that young Jewel State was in, remember? I'm sorry, it's just that it's very hard for me to watch until I sort these sorts of things out. It's kind of like getting something stuck in your teeth. It's just hard to concentrate while it's all nestled up in there. Well, Icheb is not impressed with his parents and says he wants to go back to Voyager. So they hold a meeting between the parents and Janeway and Seven, where Seven is the most protective person here, concerned about Icheb's needs, medical, regenerative, intellectual, and naturally his teenage need to look at perky neutrino patterns.
There's still the issue of his safety.
We're perfectly capable of protecting our son.
Pardon me for playing devil's advocate, but that's a hell of a statement to make, considering we found him integrated into a hive of killer cyborgs and functioning at that particular moment under a deranged true believer in the Great Assimilation. That does not sound like protecting went down there. And I'm not seeing how you're going to be able to dismiss that as some kind of one-off, you silly Jerry, 1 in a million doc situations. Also, they make clear that leaving is not an option. This is their inhospitable scrubland, and no one is going to make them leave. Honestly, it looks like a quest from Fallout, but I'm afraid to make a Fallout joke here because I know if I do, the way this year is going, I'm going to finish it up by having to use a baseball bat to fight off someone trying to steal my fried rat.
I'll have Neelix do everything he can to make you comfortable while you're here.
I think even people living in a gravel pit might have higher standards than that. Janeway has to take Seven aside to talk about her tact. Step 1, get some.
They shouldn't remain on that planet.
It's their home.
It's not worth protecting.
Who are you to decide that?
That's my job. Remember your place, you little bitch. Janeway throws out those "this is personal" questions at Seven that so often throw people off their stride. This is what this is really about. And Seven's like, well, yeah, duh. Of course I'm bothered about my parents making such shitty decisions. And I'm bothered that Icheb's parents made shitty decisions. The one doesn't negate the other. Mic drop. But Janeway's point is nevertheless valid. It's got to be Icheb's decision, not Seven's. And Icheb...
If you don't stop asking questions, I'm going to put all of you in a cargo container and transport you back to the Borg.
I'd say he's conflicted. Against his wishes, he's brought down to a meal with his parents in the mess hall, so there's 2 strikes against this already. Eventually, he gets pressured into sitting down to dinner. Fruity Pebbles, but with actual pebbles. And then he goes down to look at their scrub farm up close. Yep, they're here rebuilding, with the certitude of people who know that their only hope of not being assimilated again is to be so primitive the Borg that constantly pass by don't think they're worth assimilating. Living the dream, huh? Still, Icheb is intrigued being among his people, so Seven eventually agrees to hook up a regeneration unit down here for him. That'll win him some friends, bringing Borg tech into this civilization. That's like wearing a Yankees cap into a Boston sports bar on a night the Red Sox lost. So Icheb's pop comes up to Voyager to get the portable regeneration unit, and as they discuss Icheb, Seven asks how he was taken. So Pop says that they had some fancy schmancy new fertilization unit, and Icheb was curious about it, as young boys are naturally. The Borg snatched it and everyone who was in the area, which included Icheb. He's been beating himself up over that and says that it must have been hard for Seven's parents to watch her go through that, but that's not a subject Seven feels like exploring. On the planet, Icheb bonds with his parents as Pops talks about the stars. Seems that that's where Icheb's interest likely comes from. And as they discuss things, Icheb's science project comes up, which leads to the idea of finally going home on account of the whole wormhole thing. It seems all of this has made an impact.
And I slept. Under the stars. You should try it.
You weren't in class this morning. The others missed you.
Oh, passive-aggressive of 9, tertiary adjunct of fine, whatever, I don't care. He's decided to stay, that he feels he has a responsibility to help rebuild this civilization, sitting on the cusp of repeated annihilations. You know what, I just realized what this reminds me of, these gravel pit farmers. They remind me of Harry R. Truman, the old fart who refused to evacuate Mount St. Helens, who had 16 cats. Yeah, he stayed up there. Guess what happened to him? Cats everywhere. Anyway, Seven gives Icheb a telescope as a farewell present, and there's a heartfelt goodbye as he departs. But there's something nefarious here. Mazzotti is having trouble regenerating because Icheb is gone, and when Seven goes to put her back to Nook, Mazzotti mentions that Icheb wasn't assimilated on the planet's surface. He was assimilated on a ship. Seven immediately goes over the data and calls Janeway at 3 in the a.m. to tell her that the story of Icheb's assimilation does not match the records at all. Not the data from the Borg cube or the physical evidence on the planet of the 3 Borg attacks in the last 9 years. Oh yeah, that's right. Presidential elections come around less often than the Borg do. Yes, this is a planet to stick with, that's for sure. Us and our 16 cats. Janeway says, okay, say the guy is lying. Why would he lie? And she says this in a level of concern of someone who really doesn't give a shit that she left a child that was in her charge in the hands of a person who has deceived them. Man, that is not what I expected from her. Okay, well, yeah, I did, of course, but that's just because I'm the guy who patented painting Janeway like a mad scientist emperor with a voice box as full of tumors as a Chernobyl nudist.
We have a responsibility to ensure Icheb's safety.
He chose to stay with his parents.
That means he's not my problem, so let me make this clear. Being stuck on a ship in the Delta Quadrant with a motley crew of young aliens is my idea of hell. Piss off. Janeway is, in fact, such a devil's advocate. This entire story arc, it only makes sense if she's being sadistically hilarious. 7, I'm putting you in charge of these Borg kids. But I have no experience with children. Just use your maternal instincts. Chop chop. But these things are difficult. I said to use those maternal instincts already, you dumb bitch. Yes, I understand now. I'm bonding with them. That's great. Now, I need you to give one of them up. And try to keep your fat gob shut while I'm trying to make the sale. I mean the rendezvous. I'm really worried his parents are mistreating him, and I have evidence that he's... What part of me ignoring you do you not understand? Honestly, it's your own stupid fault for getting so attached. Now, buckle in. These kids have an appointment with some guy who calls himself the Traveler. I've got no idea what he's got in mind for them. And meanwhile, we get to the horrible parents, the mom particularly. This whole time, they've been working to get Icheb back. I mean, really working it. And we eventually find out it's all because he's a weapon. A one-shot weapon against the Borg. That's the reason that cube went down, the one that they found all the Borg kids on. Well, now that he's back, all they want to do is reload and fire him again. Well, that's what all Mom does. Pops is actually at least trying to talk her out of doing it a second time, but she's insistent that to not use Icheb against the Borg would be a waste. Dipshit. Unless you have a baby factory around here somewhere, you are not going to accomplish a thing except take out a couple of cubes. It's like being harassed by the mob so you quietly off 1 or 2 goons total. Yay, victory. Stupid flowers in the attic cow. So they sedate Icheb and put him on a transport faking a warp 9.8 warp signature to draw in the Borg's attention. Luckily, Voyager shows up, finds out the truth, and after some finagling manages to get Icheb and escape the Borg. In the coda, he studies his genome to see where the changes took place to cause him to produce the anti-Borg pathogen. Icheb struggles with blaming his parents for what they did, but that's fine because 7 hates them enough for 2 people.
I failed them.
You would have been reassimilated.
I know, but
But what?
maybe it was my destiny.
No, I refuse to be cynical. Wherever your path leads you, Icheb, I'm sure there's going to be no reason to regret it. Not a single bit of unforgivable trite bullshit in sight. Guaranteed. Post-episode follow-up. Neelix's only line in this episode is to talk about how great it is that Icheb is with his parents. Once again, the reason why he gets his own category. We have a Brahma of the Week for Icheb, who was made in a lab to be a living Trojan horse. Final score for Child's Play is 6 out of 10. The episode squanders the premise by attempting to do too much. By trying to be a story about Seven's connection to Icheb, a story about parental fallibility, a story about going home, and a story about fighting the Borg. While I applaud the idea of the character elements being given the emphasis, all this does then is bring the flimsy nature of the living weapon plot more into bear. Unless this is a regular thing around this planet, and there is no indication of it that it is, then this is a fruitless plan of theirs that reduces all the emotion of the parents to unfeeling cruelty. Manipulating everyone to get Icheb back just to pointlessly launch him at the enemy again? Ugh. Another idea wasted.
All hail the Overlord! All hail the Overlord!
I'm afraid.